While I lay weakened after giving birth to twins, my husband, the Marquis of Jingning, brought home a pregnant woman and forced me to acknowledge her outside the delivery room. Yet I merely paused for a moment before readily agreeing, very well. When my parents learned of this later, they were furious and insisted on taking action for me. I merely smiled and persuaded them to return home. For I knew the Marquis of Jingning had but a few days left to live. As for that woman, she would spend her entire life as a mere concubine, trapped beneath my hand as the Marquise, unable to live or die in peace. The voice of my husband, the Marquis of Jingning, Gu Xing, echoed incessantly from outside the delivery room window. Accompanying it were the sobbing, pitiful pleas of a woman. To the uninformed, it would sound as if I, the Marquis's wife, had died. The maid Chunlin covered my ears. "Madam, please don't listen. You absolutely must not get angry now, it could leave you with lasting health issues." Seeing her reddened eyes, I sighed inwardly. Of course, I knew one shouldn't get angry after childbirth. In my previous life, I had indeed lost my temper. Giving birth to twins was already grueling enough. Not only did I endure the bitter betrayal of my husband's cold-heartedness, but his utter contempt drove me to hemorrhage, nearly costing me my life. Only because my parents, worried about my difficult delivery, brought precious century-old red ginseng as a gift during their visit did I manage to cling to life. Yet my body was left depleted and weakened. Even with the occasional nourishing gifts from my natal family, I did not survive the winter following the new year. After my death, my resentment lingered, and I haunted the skies above the Jingning Marquis' residence day after day. I watched helplessly as, less than 3 months after my death, Gu Xing grandly welcomed that woman and her son back into the Marquis' mansion. Because of my fierce opposition on the day of childbirth, the woman never became a concubine. Instead, it paved the way for her to marry as the main wife, becoming the official lady of the Marquis' household. Later, Gu Xing also died while suppressing bandits, leaving the Jingning Marquis' estate entirely to that woman. She poisoned my son to death and raised my daughter to be a useless invalid. Finally, she even gave my daughter away as a gift to curry favor with the powerful. When my daughter took her own life in bitter despair, she laughed and said, "Serves you right for that short-lived mother of yours deliberately humiliating me back then. I only wanted a proper status to give birth to my child in peace, yet she called me shameless." Thankfully, heaven saw fit to punish her. Since she committed every conceivable atrocity, don't blame me for being ruthless. My fury, regret, and despair reached an unprecedented peak. When consciousness returned, I lay in the birthing chamber. The events just unfolding felt like a fleeting dream. I had been reborn. Gu Xing, shameless as ever, was still shouting at me from outside the window. "Madam, as the rightful wife of the Marquis, taking a concubine is your duty. Schwanger is already 7 months pregnant. We cannot let the Marquis' bloodline be scattered outside the family." I pulled Chunlin's hand away from my ears and ordered, "Let the Marquis and that woman come in." Chunlin protested urgently, "Madam, your health is paramount. Don't act on impulse. Look, even a maid knows I shouldn't get angry or exert myself after just giving birth. My dear husband, the man who once begged to marry me, has sunk to such a despicable level. He knows my standing in the Marquis' household and fears I might refuse his demands when fully recovered. That's why he deliberately chose this moment to pressure me. Had he not met an untimely death in my past life, how joyfully he and that woman would have trampled over my bones." The very thought made my heart bleed with hatred. "Chunlin, let them in. Furthermore, I have another task for you." Gu Xing hadn't expected me to yield so quickly and immediately ushered the woman inside. "Madam, do you consent to Schwanger entering the manor?" That woman was named Lu Schwanger, the niece of the old madam's maternal family. She and Gu Xing had grown up together since childhood, their bond extraordinary. Since it is the Marquis' wish, I naturally have no reason to object. Watching the ecstatic Gu Xing and the blushing woman, I smiled too. Enjoy it. According to the law, I cannot elevate a concubine to wife. Now that she's entered the household as a concubine, she'll remain one for life. As for me, I've preserved my vitality. There's no point in causing trouble now, restoring my health is the true priority. After losing my husband in my previous life, it's finally my turn to savor the carefree days of living alone in the Marquis' mansion. Fearing I might change my mind, Gushing immediately summoned attendants to have Lu Shuang'er present me with tea. No need for tea. My constitution is weak, I cannot drink it. If my parents were here, they would understand my decision. I knew exactly what Gushing feared. My family was a scholarly lineage, not comparable to the Jingning Marquis' centuries-old noble house. Yet my father was the imperial tutor, his disciples and students spread far and wide. His words carried considerable weight in the court. It was precisely because of my background that Gushing dared not defy the old marquis back then. He gave up his childhood sweetheart, his cousin, and married me instead. Yet Gushing remained insatiably greedy. Having reaped the benefits of marrying me, he still pined for his true love. How could one possibly have it both ways? I'm willing to be so magnanimous in helping him, but only because he has but days to live. After all, the more generous and self-sacrificing I appear now, the stronger my position will be when I take charge of the household. Gushing didn't suspect a thing. He offered a few perfunctory compliments about my virtue before trying to drag Lu Shuang'er away. He claimed they were going to pay respects to the old lady and select a courtyard for her. From start to finish, he never once inquired about my health, nor did he ask about his 2 newborn children. It matters little whether he cares or not. These 2 children remain his legitimate firstborn son and daughter, that will never change. Before leaving, Lu Shuang'er gave me one lingering look, her expression tinged with suspicion. Her suspicion is well-founded. I may be petty, but I couldn't wait for Gushing to die before dealing with her. Not long after Gushing and the others left, commotion erupted. Chunlin returned, accompanied by my mother. Mother said, "My child gave birth to twins, a sign of great fortune. Better days lie ahead." I smiled. Of course it is. I knew it had worked. Mother avoided mentioning anything, sparing me worry. Only later, when I found a moment, did I learn from Chunlin what had transpired. Gushing, overjoyed, led Lu Shuang'er out of my courtyard. They collided with an old servant woman carrying my blood-soaked quilt, ready to dispose of it. A basin of bloody water nearly splashed onto Lu Shuang'er. Even though Gushing shielded her, she was still thoroughly frightened. How could Gushing tolerate this? He flew into a rage immediately, demanding severe punishment for the servant. He then declared he'd return to settle things with me. Amidst all the commotion, my parents arrived. No one had informed Gushing. There he was, shielding his concubine, threatening to beat the servants in my courtyard, and vowing to teach me, a woman who'd just given birth, a lesson. And that's exactly what my parents walked in on. According to Chunlin, Gushing's face turned several shades paler the moment he saw my father. I laughed so hard my lochia flowed smoothly. Gushing underestimated my standing with my parents, they rushed to visit me immediately after my delivery. He also never imagined the depth of loyalty the Marquis servants held for me. Not to boast, but I truly excelled at managing the Jingning Marquis household. Since joining the household, I'd managed the inner quarters, overseen the estates, and handled the servants with clear rewards and punishments, all while being generous with my gifts. I'd won their hearts. I'd warned them beforehand that my parents would be coming, and not a single gatekeeper or servant dared secretly inform him. Gushing's ugly, hidden face was thus laid bare for all to see in broad daylight. After my father examined me and observed the newborn twins from a distance, he comforted me. "My child, focus on recovering your health. Your parents will handle everything." My eyes instantly welled up. Indeed, with my maternal family so formidable and doting on me so deeply, why should I sacrifice myself for a dying man? My mother, unable to rest easy, visited me almost daily during my confinement and insisted on leaving 2 personal wet nurses behind. Gushing and the old lady didn't dare utter a single word of protest. In fact, the pair even made 2 special trips to see me. It wasn't until I grew annoyed and made it clear I didn't want to see Gushing that they finally left me alone. Why would I want to see him? A man who wished me dead. All I want now is for him to die. My mother said, since my daughter doesn't wish to see her husband, let him go handle some official business. I chuckled. Very well. Old foxes are indeed crafty. Did Gushing think that by bringing Lu Shuang'er into the mansion, he could spend every day in sweet embrace? He could dream on. I don't know how father orchestrated it, but the very next day, Gushing stood outside my room announcing he had official business to attend to elsewhere. His demeanor had softened beyond recognition. Since he was capable of forcing me to accept a concubine outside my delivery room, he shouldn't blame me if father makes things difficult for him in the imperial court. As for matters within the inner quarters, mother shielded me from every detail, sparing me the slightest effort or worry. Throughout my confinement, I grew plump and fair. Only after my confinement ended did my mother permit me to oversee the affairs of the Marquis's household. The old lady was furious. My mother had effectively extended her influence into the inner quarters of the Jingning Marquis's residence. But what could she do? Gushing favored his concubine over his wife, and my parents had discovered it. With Gushing constantly sent away on business, the threat was practically written on his face. The old lady could only swallow her anger. Finally, the moment my mother left, she eagerly summoned me over. She even had me bring the twins, claiming she wanted to see her grandchildren. Chunlin frowned at this. Is the old lady already so eager to settle scores? Yes, I replied with a helpless smile. She was bringing me a newborn barely a month old to intimidate me. Madam, I am here. I shall speak for you shortly. Very well. Chunlin was a house-born servant from my mother's family, personally trained by her to protect me. I instructed the wet nurses to swaddle the babies carefully, brought several strong maids, and even selected the most dependable and quick-witted maidservants. The entire entourage made their way to the old lady's courtyard. At the very sight of this procession, the old lady's face darkened the moment we entered. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Is my daughter-in-law wary of her mother-in-law now? Not at all, mother. You are the dear grandmother of these two little ones. I performed the proper curtsy, deflecting her words with measured calm. Many things could be done, but not spoken. The old lady played along with me, and I couldn't expose her, lest I give her ammunition. Bring the little boy and girl to me so I can see them. After the old lady gave the order, Lu Schwanger, standing beside her, flashed a look of schadenfreude. Newborns barely a month old were so fragile. Even with the most careful nurturing and care, accidents could easily happen. Much less when in the hands of someone who already harbors resentment toward me. The old lady knows this well, and I know it even better. She deliberately used this method to remind me, she is the grandmother of these two children. If she were inclined to cause harm, they would have no escape. I swiftly drew close to Lu Schwanger, clasping her arm tightly, leaving her no chance to pull away. I smiled affectionately. Sister Lu, don't be so formal with me. You're carrying a child, no need for formalities. Using others as pawns, making an example to warn others, these tactics aren't exclusive to the old lady. She may be the children's grandmother, but I am the mistress of this Marquis's household. If the old lady dares harm my children, don't blame me for what I do to Lu Schwanger, the concubine. Lu Schwanger's face drained white as she clutched her belly. She desperately sought help from the old lady seated at the table, but I pretended not to notice, instead gesturing gently to the wet nurse. Didn't you hear the old lady wants to see the child? Quickly, bring the baby for her to see. Facing the old lady's move, this was my counterattack. The old lady refused even to put on a show, springing to her feet. Qin Shi, who gave you the audacity? If anything happens to Schwanger, I'll make you pay. As my mother-in-law, I dared not openly defy her, merely lowering my eyes in silence. Chunlin spoke for me. What does the old lady mean by that? Is she actually blaming our mistress? To an outsider, it would seem concubine Lu is the true mistress of the Marquis's household, while our mistress, the rightful principal wife, is treated worse than a mere concubine? The old lady frowned, clearly displeased. When the mistress speaks, how dare a servant interject? Is this the discipline and upbringing of the Qin household? Naturally, it cannot compare to the strict protocols of the Jingning Marquis's residence. Chunlin remained unperturbed, casting a glance at Lu Schwanger. Our mistress enjoys the finest reputation among the ladies of the household. She places propriety above all else and holds the old madam in the utmost respect. Even during her pregnancy, she persisted in paying her daily respects. To name just one example, she permitted a concubine carrying twins to enter the birthing chamber. That single act alone earns her the title of virtuous and magnanimous. Lu Schwanger's expression darkened. Chunlin pressed on, unlike concubine Lu, who, relying on her status as the Marquis's consort and her pregnancy, doesn't even bother to greet the head mistress. Since you, madam, value propriety above all, why does this propriety only apply to our mistress? The old lady's face turned ashen with fury, and only then did I speak up. My maid has a sharp tongue, mother-in-law. Please forgive her. It's not as dire as she makes it sound. Since I accepted Lady Lu's concubine's tea, I acknowledge her as family. It's only right I show her kindness. At this, the old lady's expression finally shifted. She recognized the threat in my words. If she intended to use my child to punish me, she shouldn't blame me for taking action against Lu Schwanger. In this Marquis's household, I am the lady of the manor, overseeing the household affairs. I am the one who holds the reins. The old lady may protect Lu Schwanger for a day, but can she guard her every need, food, clothing, shelter, without a single slip? Besides, even if one could steal for 1,000 days, how could one guard against thieves for 1,000 days? If you truly offend me, I have countless ways to deal with Lu Schwanger. The old lady slowly regained her composure. Then a look of disappointment flashed across her face. Very well. I should have known you, Qinshi, are proud and arrogant, relying on your parents' backing to disregard this old woman. Since that is the case, consider this old woman unworthy of being your mother-in-law, unworthy of your filial respect. You need not come to pay your respects henceforth. Treat this household as if I never existed. Her words carried immense weight. It was undeniably unexpected. This went beyond mere domestic strife, it struck at the very face of my parents. Gu Xing's future prospects were controlled by my father. Yet the old lady acted thus, sacrificing even mother-son affection to protect Lu Schwanger? Was it because Lu Schwanger was her niece by marriage? Or because she was pregnant? When I was pregnant, the old lady showed no emotion whatsoever. No, it seemed the old lady valued Lu Schwanger more than her own son, Gu Xing. While I was lost in thought, Lu Schwanger wriggled free and hid behind the old lady, looking as if I'd done her a tremendous wrong. Yet her eyes clearly sparkled with triumph as she feigned concern. Mother, you still have me. You were once my aunt, but from now on, you are my mother. It doesn't matter that my sister fails to honor you. From now on, I will honor you. The old lady's expression toward Lu Schwanger instantly softened. She stroked her with comforting hands. Ah, I always knew you were a good one. Having you is my blessing, Xinger. Their display of affection and the words exchanged made it seem to an outsider that they were the true mother and daughter. I studied their features closely, my heart pounding like a drum. In a haze, I felt as though I had grasped something. I dared not dwell on it further and hurriedly took my leave. Back in my own courtyard, I couldn't calm myself. I realized I had gravely overlooked something. Gu Xing's death was highly suspicious. In my previous life, he solemnly married Lu Schwanger, only to die shortly afterward. I had dismissed it as divine retribution for his role in my death. But in truth, after Gu Xing's death, the Jingning Marquis exhibited many irregularities. For instance, the Gu family relatives did not enshrine his spirit tablet in the ancestral hall, claiming his death in battle left him with great resentment, so he was sent to a temple for prayers. Furthermore, although I had already given birth to Gu Xing's legitimate eldest son, and Lu Schwanger herself bore a son, the relatives still insisted on adopting a Gu family nephew to inherit the marquisate. Even when Lu Schwanger killed 2 of my children, the Gu relatives never uttered a word of protest. Based on my interactions with them now, I know they cherish their descendants deeply. They would never allow a stepmother to harm Gu family offspring without cause. Most bizarrely, my own parents also kept silent about this matter. It shouldn't be so. They cherished me so deeply, their affection would naturally extend to protecting these 2 little grandchildren. Unless something prevented them from intervening. The seed of suspicion planted, I immediately began investigating. I had shown immense patience toward Gu Xing in the past. In my eyes, when my husband deceived me, manipulated me, and forced me, he became nothing more than a stranger under the same roof. As his legally wedded wife, bearing his children, no one could surpass me as long as I remained blameless. Moreover, he had secured me a prestigious marquisate and vast family estates even in death. Why quarrel with the dead? But if his presence threatened my future prosperity and my children's lifelong security, that was another matter entirely. I asked my father to investigate. A few days later, my mother summoned me back to her home, claiming she wished to see her grandchild. The moment I entered, my mother embraced me and wept. "My poor child. How did you end up in such a den of wolves and tigers? It's all your father and mother's fault for being blind, for not probing deeper before marrying you off to this inhuman, ghostly creature." I knew then my suspicions were correct, and a wave of utter absurdity washed over me. "Father, do you have concrete evidence?" My father sighed. "Following Gushing led us nowhere. It was only after your mother suggested investigating Lu Schwanger that we uncovered something." I twisted my lips. Come to think of it, in my past life, Gushing died not long after he made a grand show of marrying Lu Schwanger. Gushing, if you knew that the precious little darling you cherished was your death sentence, would you still treasure her so? And how would the old lady have chosen between Gushing and Lu Schwanger? Upon returning to the Jingning Marquis' residence, I withdrew into quietude, devoting myself solely to caring for my children. I bore twins. My son, Gu Yan, was born with congenital issues and frail health, requiring constant attention. As Lu Schwanger's delivery approached, Gushing raced back, having exhausted 2 horses in his haste. Spotting me outside the delivery chamber, he grew wary. "Why are you here? If you dare harm Schwanger now, I won't forgive you." See? He knew full well a laboring woman couldn't handle stress. Yet he'd gone out of his way to provoke me outside the delivery room. He was clearly trying to drive me to my death. What could I do? "Your lordship, as the Marquise, I must care for concubine Lu, who bears children for the Marquisate." I smiled at him, pretending not to see his guard. Truth be told, before Gushing brought Lu Schwanger into the open, he was quite skilled at pretending. We even had a sweet time together. I thought he truly cared for me, which made his actions outside the delivery room hurt even more. How laughable that love ever stirred within me. This is the rage and resentment of deception. Gushing, oh Gushing, you'd be better off dead. Under the watchful eyes of Gushing and the old lady, Lu Schwanger gave birth to a healthy baby boy, just as in my past life. They named him Gu Qing. At the height of their family's joy, I had word spread that relatives from the Lu family had arrived. The old madam and Gushing, who had been beaming, suddenly turned pale. Lu Schwanger, however, seemed quite pleased. Among the visitors were Lu Schwanger's own mother and her younger brother. By extension, they were also the old madam's sister-in-law, Lady Zhou. But the old madam did not welcome them. Gushing explained to me, "My eldest uncle passed away early, so mother and my aunt were never close." As I sat in attendance, I merely smiled without comment. I dutifully fulfilled my obligations as the matriarch, arranging accommodations for the distant relatives. Accustomed to such tasks, I managed everything inside and out with seamless efficiency. Madame Zhou was thoroughly satisfied. Regardless of whether the old madam welcomed them, they cheerfully settled in with their son. The old madam, who hadn't spoken to me since our last unpleasant parting, unexpectedly summoned me. She was furious at my arrangements. "Why are you treating a bunch of rowdy, down-and-out riffraffs so well? Do you have money to burn?" I replied, "After all, they are your relatives, madam, and they are also Sister Lu's own mother. It wouldn't do to give people cause for gossip." The old lady was momentarily speechless. After a long pause, she reluctantly ordered, "We'll take good care of Schwanger here. As for the others, find a way to send them back." She was flustered. Who would drive away their own relatives like this? Didn't this clearly imply there was history between them? It just goes to show that when people lose their composure, they do foolish things. I feigned ignorance and asked, "But what exactly is the issue between you and Lady Lu?" The old lady fell silent. I could only play the difficult role, "Grandmother, I'm just a junior. It's not my place to meddle in matters between elders. Young Master Yan is unwell, and I must return to care for him." After leaving the old lady's chambers, Gushing came to find me. He said, "Madam, you don't know my aunt. Her character is questionable. My cousin is also addicted to gambling dens. Associating with them won't do us any good. You should send them away as soon as possible." They all wanted me to be the bad guy so they could keep their good reputations. Pfft, wishful thinking. I countered, then why did you take your aunt's daughter as a concubine? Weren't you afraid Lu Schwanger might not be a good match? How could Schwanger be like them? She was raised in our household since childhood, Gushing retorted immediately. I couldn't hold back any longer and asked, if you and your cousin are so well matched, why did you marry me? Gushing only left with one sentence, Qin Su, you are already the lady of Jingning Marquis. Don't push your luck. Watching the twins playing on the couch, my heart grew cold. This was my final chance for Gushing. He chose to let it slip through his fingers. So what if I'm beautiful and have high standards? I'll push my luck to the limit. I turned to see Lady Lu, Zhou Shi. My cousin Lu Tang glanced around nervously, taking in the marquisade's opulent splendor. So I placed a banknote for 3,000 taels of silver before them. This represented a month's expenditure for the Ho residence, a colossal sum for the Lu family. Gold nearly sparkled in Lu Tang's eyes. Madame Zhou put on a show of refusal. This is too much, truly too much. Madame Gu, please take it back. I replied awkwardly, I'm merely delivering a message. My husband instructed me to present this gift. He said you suffered injustice today and asked for your understanding. Madame Zhou's eyes darted about, calculating every detail. Really? It's from your husband? I nodded innocently. Yes. My husband truly values Lu's sister and treats your family with genuine kindness. Hearing the answer she craved, Mrs. Zhou smiled. Had I known. I should have come sooner. Lu Tang chuckled too. This blessing has finally come our way. Seen this way, it seemed even more fitting. Too bad Gushing rarely smiled in daily life. I pretended not to understand, maintaining the appearance of an obedient lady of the inner quarters, never prying into matters not meant for my ears. The matter ended with me. But for Gushing, it had only just begun. My parents kept tabs for me, occasionally passing on news. Winter grew colder. Around the time I died of illness in my previous life, it was Zhou Shi who perished. Gushing was the one who struck. Even Zhou Shi's son, Lu Tang, was beaten to the brink of death, clinging to life by a thread. The incident caused such an uproar that even Gushing, despite his noble title, was detained by the Ministry of Justice. The old lady came personally to my courtyard. Though Lady Zhou had been at the home mansion for barely a month, she had grown noticeably thinner. She looked like an ancient tree drained of its very essence. Pointing at me, she demanded sharply, you knew, didn't you? I summoned Chunlin to carry away the two children, dismissed the servants, and only then looked at her deliberately. I'm not sure what you're referring to, mother-in-law. You knew! The old lady repeated the phrase with terrifying persistence. You gave Lu Tang the money for gambling. You brought Zhou Shi here. Even Xing's downfall was your cunning scheme. Qin Shi, you venomous woman. Marrying you has cursed my family for 8 generations. I laughed. In my own courtyard, with no one else present, I couldn't be bothered to put on a show. Yes, I did it. So what? If you intend to divorce me, what excuse will you use? The one driven to desperation by Zhou Shi and her son was Gushing. The one who, pushed beyond endurance, killed his own kin, that was Gushing. What does that have to do with me? The old lady's eyes bulged like a frog's, as if she wanted to devour me alive. This helplessness of watching things spiral toward ruin, she tasted it too. Her lips trembled. If Gushing meets her end, do you think you'll escape unscathed? I have ways to drag you down with her. I believed her. The old lady possessed that power, not because of her status or ability, but because of Gushing herself. You see, the old lady harbors a secret she's guarded all these years. Gushing wasn't her biological son. Lu Schwanger was. Zhou Shi and Lu Tang were Gushing's real mother and younger brother. I didn't know why they'd been switched all those years ago, but with Gushing being the only heir in the Jingning Marquis' household, I could guess the reason. The old lady must have believed that once Gushing married Lu Schwanger, the family would be reunited. Alas, the late Marquis Gu likely knew nothing of this, and I happened to come between them. Then came Lu Schwanger's grand entrance into the manor, followed by Zhou Shi and Lu Tang, whom I also brought to the capital. I deliberately fed Zhou Shi and Lu Tang's greed, letting them feast their eyes on the Jingning Marquis' wealth and power, and encouraging them to use Guxing's origins as a bargaining chip. Step by step, I drove Guxing into a corner, forcing him to strike down his own bloodkin. And conveniently, my men caught him red-handed, making it known throughout the city. It was a risky gamble. But compared to exposing Guxing's origins before the Gu clan and having him disposed of, it was better for him to die bearing this crime. At least it wouldn't tarnish the origins of my 2 children. I was gambling, betting that the old lady valued her own wealth and prestige more than anything, cherished her own flesh and blood above all else. So when confronted by her blustering, hollow threats, I remained utterly unflustered. Lu Shuang'er has given birth to a son. Even as a concubine's son in the Marquis' household, he can still secure a good position through ancestral influence. Should he pursue the imperial examinations, my maternal family can lend support. Mother, you now hold the esteemed position of the Marquis' household's matriarch. With grandchildren already born, as long as the Marquis' household endures, it will provide for you. As steward of the household, I may not be the most skilled manager, but I shall never let the Marquis' estate fall into ruin. The old lady's expression shifted several times. I gave her no prompting. After finishing a cup of tea, her shoulders visibly slumped. What do you intend to do? Guxing was caught red-handed, and you've stirred up such a scandal. He may even lose his title. Mother-in-law, you are mistaken. That was young Master Gu's desperate counterattack, driven to the brink by his own foolish relatives. For the deceased, both the common folk and His Majesty always hold a shred of compassion. The old lady's eyes bulged, her tongue tied in shock. You mean. But he is my son. I merely smiled without reply. The truth was something we both understood all too well. Madam, this is the final solution. The only way to preserve our Marquisate. I truly did not wish for Guxing's true origins to be exposed. If this impostor Marquis were to falter, I, the Marquise, would become a laughingstock, and my 2 children would lose their claim to the Marquisate's title. Yet I still had my maternal clan to rely on, ensuring my later years would be secure. But the old lady, who had swapped the Gu family heir, would surely face harsher punishment. Even that parasitic flower, Lu Shuang'er, would surely meet her doom. I could afford to gamble, but the old lady absolutely could not. The old lady was speechless. But how can I pointed to someone. This medical practitioner understands pharmacology. She should be able to assist the old lady. As I had anticipated, Guxing fell gravely ill the very next day in the Ministry of Justice's prison. His illness was sudden and fierce, and within 3 days, he breathed his last. Before dying, he left a letter of self-accusation, confessing his crimes against his aunt and cousin. Yet between the lines, it revealed the greed and coercion of the Zhou family, both mother and son. Subsequently, it was exposed that Lu Tang had squandered vast sums at gambling dens, racking up a colossal debt of 10,000 taels in the name of the Jingning Marquis' household. Guxing, driven by affection for his maternal family and his deep love for Lu Shuang'er, had ultimately retaliated under Lu Tang's relentless coercion. He never imagined it would lead to a fatal outcome. Though Guxing committed the crime, his prior distress and subsequent confession leading to his own imprisonment, coupled with my father's intervention, ultimately persuaded His Majesty not to strip the Marquis of Jingning of his title. A monetary penalty was imposed, and the matter was quietly dismissed. The old lady wept herself hoarse. She kept blaming herself for ruining her son and insisted on severing ties with the Lu family. Members of the Gu clan visited the Jingning Marquis' residence several times, each time conferring secretly with the old lady. Occasionally, they would come looking for me too. After all, Guxing's death was suspicious. It was impossible for no one in the Gu family to harbor doubts. I played the part perfectly, a wife who was not cherished by Guxing, yet served as a tool to remind him of his in-laws' influence. Naturally, I knew nothing. The old lady summoned me several times, using veiled threats to pressure me into taking the blame. But I reversed my previous reckless attitude, responding with feigned hurt. "What are you saying, mother-in-law? Your daughter-in-law knows nothing. Yes, I provided the person. But it was you who administered the poison and carried out the deed, mother-in-law. She was the one who orchestrated the baby swap all those years ago. Whoever started this karmic debt should be the one to end it." Only fair, wouldn't you agree? Finally, the old lady couldn't bear it anymore. She came to my room one last time. Chin Su, dare you swear to heaven that you will never harm Schwanger and will treat her child well? I dare. I made that vow. Not long after, the old lady also fell gravely ill and passed away. The official story, of course, was that she had fallen ill from grief over her son, and because of her own family's actions, she felt she had failed the ancestors of the Jingning Marquis household. Her heart was filled with sorrow and frustration, leading to her untimely death. This cycle of misfortune, started by the Lu family mother and son, finally came to a complete end. Though Gu Xing died, he passed away as the Marquis of Jingning, his title intact. He and my eldest son, Gu Yan, were the rightful heirs. Gu Yan would inherit the marquisate in due time. With my parents as my backing, I weathered the pressure from the Gu clan and firmly secured control of the entire Marquis of Jingning household. I took Lu Schwanger's son to raise personally, while she herself was confined for 2 years before being sent to the country estate. I repaid her in full for every torment she inflicted upon my daughter. I must admit, Lu Schwanger's methods of inflicting suffering without leaving a trace were quite ingenious. Moreover, I used the very label she had applied to my daughter in her previous life. I was teaching her a lesson. Even when the Gu family relatives came to visit several times, Lu Schwanger appeared plump and healthy, seemingly only unhappy but otherwise fine. A concubine, after all, holds a status scarcely higher than that of a servant. Now that Gu Xing is dead, I still provide Lu Schwanger with food and shelter. I neither beat nor abuse her, that alone shows my kindness. Gradually, I ceased to concern myself with her. Lu Schwanger was utterly forsaken by heaven. Her lifelong dream had been to enter the Marquis's mansion and live a life of luxury and splendor. Yet now, she would spend her remaining days in poverty and misery on the estate. The day Lu Schwanger was sent away, my mother came to see me. My child is truly wise and capable. Even in this pit of suffering and filth, you found a way out. You are indeed blessed with great fortune. I wanted to laugh along, but seeing the twins already running and playing in the courtyard, tears welled up in my eyes. This blessed life was bought with the lives of our 3, mother and children. Yet, turning my thoughts, I realized the hard times were behind us, and only good days lay ahead. So I smiled again. Yes, the best days are yet to come. Spring was radiant, the sunlight perfect. Gu Qing's side story. Gu Qing was the second son of the Jingning Marquis, born to Lu Schwanger. Together with my eldest son, Gu Yan, he abandoned the martial glory passed down through generations and chose the path of scholarship, entering the Imperial Academy to study. This pleased my father. A scholar of the literati tradition, he treated both boys equally. I despised Gu Xing and Lu Schwanger, yet I raised Gu Qing with utmost care. I nurtured him into an upright young gentleman, the polar opposite of those shameless scoundrels. At 19, Gu Qing declared he wished to abandon scholarly pursuits and imperial examinations. His heart lay in landscapes and painting. I talked with him all night and granted his absurd request. So Gu Qing left the Imperial Academy. He dashed out every day, beaming with joy, and even opened a small painting shop. His life was leisurely and rather interesting. Chunlin, who had already married, became my personal attendant. She told me Lu Schwanger had run away from the estate. I wasn't particularly surprised. When I sent Lu Schwanger to the estate, I didn't mistreat her, but I couldn't let her idle either. She had to do some work. She never dared run away before, knowing the estate offered her a lifeline, at least enough to eat. Leaving meant starving on the streets. This time, I knew why she dared escape. Lu Schwanger went to find Gu Qing. That day, Gu Qing had indeed encountered a gaunt, stooped old woman outside his painting shop. Years of poverty had stripped away the beauty and delicate charm she once prided herself on. Though it was their first meeting, Gu Qing recognized her instantly. Lu Schwanger, tears streaming down her face, reached out tremulously to grasp his hand. "My child, Qingga, I am your own mother." Gu Qing allowed her to hold his hand, showing neither resistance nor affection. He merely asked indifferently, "You should have been sent to the estate. Why seek me out?" Lu Schwanger stared at him in shock. "I've suffered so terribly. Shouldn't you take me in to care for me?" Gu Qing tugged at the corner of his mouth. "The Marquis's household is supporting you now." He stated the facts matter-of-factly. Lu Shuang'er grew agitated. Qin Su clearly took pleasure in my misfortune. Brother Qing, you have no idea how wicked that woman is. Right after your father passed, she snatched you away and drove me out of the Marquis's residence. Gu Qing, but you were a concubine. It's only natural for a principal wife to dispose of you. Lu Shuang'er stared at him with unfamiliarity. Qing'er, I'm your biological mother. How could you think that? Gu Qing rephrased his question. Did father force you to become his concubine? Your father and I were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. When he was alive, he treated me so well. My food, clothing, and living standards were all better than Qin Su's. It was that vile woman Qin Su. Lu Shuang'er rushed to explain, unaware that the last trace of pity in Gu Qing's eyes had vanished. Gu Qing cut her off. Then why didn't father marry you? Why did he marry mother instead? Lu Shuang'er's lips trembled. It was the late Marquis's command. So you lived with father without a matchmaker? All color drained from Lu Shuang'er's face. Her own son's accusatory words felt like a brutal slap across her face. She shrieked sharply. Did that woman Qin Su tell you this? She has no good intentions. She deliberately corrupted you, making you hate me. Shut up. Don't speak disrespectfully of my mother. Gu Qing cut her off again. He had no patience for Lu Shuang'er's fury and her attempts to shift blame. Mother treated me exceptionally well, no different from her own flesh and blood. Whatever my elder brother and sister had, I never lacked. She raised me, taught me propriety and shame. And precisely because of that, I am utterly ashamed. Gu Qing glared at Lu Shuang'er with fury. I am a concubine-born son, yet I am only 2 months younger than my elder brother and sister. I am living proof, evidence of father in you, my concubine, betraying mother. Father was unfaithful, and you, concubine, are shameless. If you won't admit it was an illicit affair, how else could mother have allowed you into the household as a concubine so soon after her wedding? Lu Shuang'er swayed, on the verge of collapse. You can't say that. You committed such shameless acts, why should you object to others speaking of them? Had you shown even a shred of self-respect, spared yourself such degradation, you wouldn't have dragged me down with you. No, it's not what you think. Lu Shuang'er shook her head frantically. Then what is it? Gu Qing pressed. Lu Shuang'er could only clamp her mouth shut. Watching the Gu family's upheavals over the years, she had vaguely guessed the answer, but she couldn't speak it. Those who knew the secret had all been silenced forever. Lu Shuang'er could only sob. Qin Su deliberately misled you, driving a wedge between us mother and son. Qing'er, I am your mother, I gave birth to you. Gu Qing took a step back. I have only one mother, the one who raised me and taught me. Mother treated me well, found me a wife, helped me establish my home and career. I cannot betray her. In the future, I will care for her in her old age and see her off at the end, fulfilling my filial duty. Lu Shuang'er staggered and finally fainted. Gu Qing merely ordered her to be sent back to the estate. After that, he only sent her an extra 2 coins of silver each month, never visiting her again. Though Lu Shuang'er now possessed some silver, her spirit seemed even more broken than before. As if all hope had deserted her, she passed away within 2 years. Upon learning this, Gu Qing came before me specifically to apologize. He arranged for Lu Shuang'er's body to be collected and gave her a decent funeral, after which the matter was closed. After that, I never heard Gu Qing mention Lu Shuang'er again. Gu Qing married only once in his life. Because his beloved wife was frail, they had no children. After she passed away, he never remarried. He said he detested men who were unfaithful. The Gu family's cycle of evil karma ended with him. The end.